Greetings, mortals, and welcome back.
How's it going? Give me a second. We are going to twitch.tv. Tuvalu is doing. I wonder how much money Tuvalu makes off of the .tv thing. It's an interesting. Okay, we've done that. What else do we need to do? We need to patch. Maybe we may or may not need to patch. Let's see if there's an update. There's no update. Perfect. We don't need to patch. We're all set. Paradilities. Definitely pronounced that correctly. Okay. Close you. Pop over here. Let's see. We are going to open the game. Yes. So, when last we left off, we had actually just finished up the bulk of the werewolf place. We have like a boss left that we need to deal with. But other than that, we're golden. So other than that thing, okay, it turns out that, it's right there. So maybe we move. So we're going to go over here. We did manage to find a way to get through this place. I was a little concerned that I was not going to have a good time here. Ooh, pernicious paradise. Indeed. But we got there. Well, we are probably fine. We unfortunately have these broodlings all over the goddamn dungeon. I'm gonna say that my experience with the brood has been incredibally positive. What a unique effect! Like the interaction with the way that these are all over the goddamn place and spread out across different entry. That was spooky. Across different entryways and stuff like that is very cool. Can I get back in there? Because I'm in the wrong place. Okay, we're fine. Because I can't go back without spawning more enemies from there, so I need to get back over here. But if you look at the way that these are laid out around this place, this is a very cool setup to be in. I think that is in the thing. So I'm gonna go here. Okay, we killed the Master Swordsman, so we now just have... Nope, I'm wrong. Oh shit, where am I? Oh god. Oh god, we're gonna die. I forgot that I was in the place that doesn't have a whatchamacallit. Did I save? I don't think I saved. Okay, we need to save every time we teleport down. Every time we teleport down, we're saving. Always be saving. It's the rules. It's the rules. Okay. We're in the wrong place again. Damn it. Okay, so it's fine. It terrifies 39-year-old me. So, me and your childhood self has something in common. Let's see. We have that one there. Where the hell is this? Okay, it must be in the thing, I guess. Are you stuck somewhere? Alright, we don't want to come from this side. We're gonna go to the other side. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Save-onomics, indeed. It sounds like an unlearning economics video about the steps that need to be taken to save economics from itself. The economics profession is in a really weird place. To my understanding. It has some similarities to, like, the like, divide that you have with, like, medical experts of, like, between, like, what, you know, modern researchers, you know, think about things versus what, like, the average working doctor thinks about things. And those kinds of disconnects are very prominent in some fields more than others, but in all fields they exist. And economics has a lot of issues with, like, the massive disparity between what is between the kinds of economists that got brought on television to talk about economics versus what actual economists will tell you. The people they bring on television are generally not credible economists. There's an issue of, like, there's a lot more money to be made in bad economics than there is in, like, good economics. It's a whole thing. If you do the economics correctly, you'll be telling people in this case being legislators and stuff like that, to do things that are unpopular among the kinds of people who want economists to be telling them what to do. Oh, right, I forgot about this. Well,
I need healing.
I'm almost certainly dead here, but... somehow, Arctole returned. Yeah, I mean, it's like... I don't even know that corruption is necessarily the right term to use for it. There's corruption intrinsic to the process, but it's not... but, like, the people who are, like... they're not necessarily bringing on a person who's corrupt. They are bringing on a person who has ideas that are useful to them. So the choice to bring them on is a corrupt one. In the same way that, like, if you think about the way that, like, science is communicated, like, they'll bring on string theorists all day because string theorists are fun and interesting to listen to, and they're basically just espousing magic. They're not talking about real science. So, like, the reason that they're brought on is because they make good television. And in a similar, but obviously mechanically worse in meaningful ways for... well, I guess it depends. Because, like, obviously it's not great for people to not trust physicists because the only physicists they've ever heard of are string theorists, and string theorists aren't real physicists. Like, that's not a great thing. But with economics, there's a lot more direct, tangible, like pretending that trickle down economics, like trickle down theory, is like a real economic theory. That's fully just made up by politicians. Like trickle down economics is not a real thing. Nobody believes in trickle down economics. That's not a real thing. But like, if you watch if you watch who they bring on the news, you'd think that it's a real thing because the people they call economists will act like it's a real thing, and it's like, no. Terms like job creator, like that's not an economics principle. The idea of the bourgeois as some sort of like, you know, as like a job creating class, that's complete fiction that's made up by like TV economists, right? Like that's just made up. It's not like it's not a thing you're going to hear economists talking about. Like it's just not. That's not how economies work. But those are the narratives that are useful, and so people who will sort of like lean into those narratives. Yeah, and some of them are like straight up physicists, right? Like it's been very useful, I think, that like Neil deGrasse Tyson has been like fronted a lot because he's like an actual scientist, and like not all of his messaging is necessarily great, but it's way better than bringing on one of these string theorists to talk, right? It's way better than bringing on some like trickle down economist. Like bringing on someone who's just going to tell the news people what they want to hear versus bringing on someone who's like, oh yeah, I have opinions. And one of the issues is that like science communication is not, I don't think is a real thing. In terms of like, none of the people who are like science communicators are very good at communicating science because science isn't a thing. There's some fundamental principles to science, and if you want to communicate those fundamental principles of like of hypotheses and testing and things like that, that's one thing. But even within that, like the way the actual standards of testing for different fields are massively different, right? Like the kinds of stuff that you're testing when you're able to just weigh everything involved. Oh, there's a person back there. There is a like if you take biology and you take physics, which are both sciences, they have very different standards for everything, because it turns out that like it's a lot harder to measure some things, and there's a lot more math involved with some things, and like all of the sciences are somewhere in between taxonomy and math, right? Whereas it's like, okay, it's a mixture of like arbitrary classification and mathematics. Every science has a mix of both. Some have a stronger math focus, like a lot of physics is very math forward. As is like organic chemistry, right? But like organic chemistry is like related to biology, but they just have different things, right? Well, the physicist is right. Biology, so like there's the XKCD thing, right? Let's pull up the XKCD. What is it? I don't remember what it's called. It's something purity, I think. Purity. Let's see here. I'm okay. So I'm just gonna link it, and then I'll describe it because I'm lazy and I don't want join Twitch. Okay, never mind. I won't link it. Fine. I'll make this work. We will add a source. Add a source. Your web-based. Can I add? So if I add this as a source, it seems to work. Interesting. I don't even have to use the window, though using the window would probably be superior. Okay, let's delete this and add a window. Anyway, it's not a big deal. I'm not going to bother. Okay, but anyway, it's like, so it's fields arranged by purity, and then it's sociologists, and then the psychologists are looking at them and going, "Oh, sociology is just applied psychology," and then the biologists are just like, "Psychology is just applied biology," and then the chemists are like, "Biology is just applied chemistry." And the physicists are like, well, this, which is just applied physics. It's nice to be on top. And then, like, a mile to the right of them is the mathematicians going, oh, hey, I didn't see you guys all the way over there. Which is very funny. I think that that's a good joke. But it's important to remember that how close you are to math is not philosophically the same as how true it is. That's not what that means. It also doesn't mean how useful it is, right? But it also does mean that there's different standards for the different sciences because they're just doing different things, right? Like, because biology is not just applied chemistry. It's actually not applied chemistry almost at all. Organic chemistry is an application of chemistry, right? Like it's a subform. Biology is chemistry on some level, as in like our biology is chemistry. That this is a chemical thing. The study of biology is mostly not chemistry because it's mostly like systems. So it's like a lot of game theory. The kind of, if you were to derive it from a mathematical principle, it completely bypasses the mathematical principles that are applied physics and chemistry, right? It actually is a completely different subset of mathematics to describe the behavior of organisms in a system. That is not the same kind of math you do for chemistry. So, it's important to remember that, like, there's also a distinction between what the thing is and what the science is. Because biology, the thing, the living organisms themselves are just chemistry. The study of their behavior is not, right? The study of biological systems is not it's not a chemistry study in any meaningful way. You just don't use the same stuff to study it. So, anyway, it's an interesting problem. I don't actually remember how I got on this topic. I fully do not remember what the point I was trying to get at the beginning was. Oh, we were talking about economics. Yes. Oh, and like bringing people on. So the issue is that if you have like a biologist and a physicist talking as if they know anything about the other subject, they basically don't, because like they're both sciences on some level, but they are meaningfully not similar studies. they are studying incredibly different things. There's such a huge difference between the study of things that have agency and action, like systems where game theory applies, and systems where game theory does not apply because it's a rock, right? Like, rocks have incredibly complex, interactions. Those interactions are not described by game theory, not meaningfully. You can try to describe the behaviors of organisms, of things with some degree of sentience. You can try to describe those kinds of systems with the same systems you would use to describe things that don't have agency, like rocks. And you can create a system that describes rocks that kind of, sort of describes the activities of other things. So, like, if you talk about it as like on like a level of like, oh, okay, so what is the path of least resistance and stuff like that, you can get something akin to useful insight on a thing, but it's really just something akin to useful insight. You're realistically, a rock follows gravity because it must, and animals do behaviors because they're useful, and those are very different motivational structures. Because the complexity of the behavior leads to it takes a creature. It takes a creature to do something stupid. A rock can't do a dumb thing. Rocks are never misinformed. Rocks don't accidentally defy gravity. But plants, animals, even like microorganisms, all have the capacity to be self-destructive, which is just not really a thing that a rock can be, because a rock doesn't have an agenda, right? So,
Never seen one before.
so anyway, so it's important to recognize that, like, science, the study of biology, has much more in common with the study of, like, economics than it has in common with the study of physics. Now, if you're getting into, like, if you're getting into organic chemistry territory, which the terminology between organic chemistry and biology, there's a lot of, like, gray area between the two, for obvious reasons. But when you're talking about the actual, like, physical structures of things, that changes the dynamic considerably. But anyway, the point basically being that, like, they'll bring on like Neil deGrasse Tyson to ask him about biology, and when they ask him about biology, he tends to give bad responses because he doesn't understand the field. And actually, like, a really good example of that is that, like Richard Feynman, who was a brilliant physicist, was also incredibly bad at biology because he just couldn't handle the basic understanding of how you have to control. And now, admittedly, he might have just been he might have been bad at testing things generally, actually. More so than he is at specifically biology, because he was a theoretical physicist. He was not, he was not a there, but he was not an experimental physicist. But but though that in and of itself is a distinction that's kind of like an arbitrary one because of a variety of reasons. Anyway, it's a whole thing. The point is, when they bring people on TV to discuss these kinds of topics, they don't bring them on because they're necessarily the best person to do the talk. They bring them on because it'll get clicks, or because
Never seen one
serves
before.
it serves their interests to do so. Like the number of times that they'll bring someone on claiming that they're an economist and they're just a CEO. It's like, ah, yes, we have a labor dispute
Never seen one before.
between the ownership of a company and the employees of that company. How about we bring in a CEO to act as like an expert, like an unbiased expert in the field of labor relations, and it's like, what the hell are you talking about? They generally don't. They will often, when they're bringing them on for that purpose, they will hide the fact that they are a CEO. They'll just call them like, oh, this is CNN contributor so and so. We won't talk about the fact that he's a venture capitalist.
I'm hurt.
We won't talk about the like obvious conflict of interest in having this person on to discuss labor issues. But that is what it is.
Take it.
Nope.
I'm hurt.
Well, I'm probably won't. That's a yuppers. It walked into me. You know, this is taking longer than I expected because these have gotten like very thoroughly, like, I guess I could do that and see if I can get this one to move. I'd love to get some of these moved away from where they are right now. So, are you still down there? Yes, yes you are. Okay. This is fun. Okay, we got this. So I think this is how we're going to deal with the ones that have actually gotten into the bottom here. Oh god, there's so much HP at play here. I think this is two of them, right?
It's me.
It sure is. Oh, I'm probably dead. Didn't die. Alright. Yeah, they're moving now, which is good. Hopefully they don't move directly into the path that I have here. Did they move away? No, they're still here. Okay, rude. Alright, let's go this way. Let's see what happens. I don't know why they're moving that way all of a sudden. Because I'd love to get some, like, proper kiting range. I don't think that those are the ones that I necessarily want to try to kite. So, let's try to pop over here. Is there a enemy at the bottom of this? There was before. There is not now. Okay. That's fine. Cannot cast Invis here. Gotcha. So that's the key. So we can't cast Invis in this one, which means if we want to use that one, it's a little bit more of a pain in the ass to go back and forth. Let's save the game. But yeah, there are meaningful issues with like all of the sciences, and some of the so-called like social sciences have the issue where, in response to people
Never seen one
saying
before.
this doesn't seem like a mathematically robust way of accomplishing the objective you're trying to accomplish, their response will be, well, it's not possible to get mathematically robust answers to this fundamentally mathematical question. The data can't be created. To which the response is, unfortunately, well, then you can't have results. like there's a big difference between doing like taxonomical stuff, which is what a lot. If you're doing like biology and you're not doing like a bunch of math, you're doing taxonomical stuff, right? You're just making arbitrary statements of like, this is this category for these reasons. I'm defining this category as this, right? Which is fine. That's a very reasonable thing to do. We need taxonomies. But if you're doing like sociology or economics and you're making claims about the nature of the world that are supposed to be based in mathematical rigor, but you don't have the data to support the math that you're trying to do, that's a very different thing, because that's not a difference in kind, right? Like, you're not doing a different kind of thing, whereas like taxonomy is not mathematically rigorous by definition. It's not supposed to be. That's not the goal of taxonomy. But if you're trying to do something mathematically rigorous and you just don't because you don't have the data, because the data can't be created, because you're trying to study something that is impossible to study, the correct answer is to say, okay, well, this is kind of impossible to study with what we have available right now, and it might forever be impossible to study or unethical to study, right? There's plenty of things where it's like, okay, we could study this, but it would be extremely unethical to do so, and our ethical standards don't allow us to study this. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that's fine. Just because it's like, oh, well, it's like one of the like core things with like drug testing is that like if a drug test seems like it is extremely successful, they will end the test if it means, or not end the test, they will end the blind the placebo side. The placebo side is eventually going to be ended if you're dealing with life-saving medicine and the medicine seems to be working well enough that you're basically killing somebody by leaving them in the placebo side, right? Like, it is unethical to be running a test where clearly this medicine works and you have people taking a placebo instead of the real medicine when they could be alive. And they're going to die because of the fact that they're on the placebo side. That's extremely unethical. And as a result, like, it's unethical, and that's why it's not done, right? Like, people don't keep doing placebo for, like, cancer research that would save their life if the indication of the thing so far is, yeah, this is clearly beating out placebo. Because, like, the whole thing with placebo is, like, it's important to, like, have an idea for placebo, because having any treatment is generally better than no treatment, even if the treatment itself isn't doing anything. That's kind of like an important thing in it, but it's not that important, right? Like, if you actually have medicine that's very effective, you don't need placebo testing, because the placebo testing is all of the death is the mortality rate in the wild. Right? Because there's a difference between the mortality rate in the wild and the mortality rate that you'll get with placebo. Those are not the same number, but they're very similar numbers, right? So, like, if something is like, okay, this is like going to increase the survival rate of the people in the program by 5%, you need the placebo side, because otherwise you don't have the way to identify whether you have a statistically significant improvement or just an improvement at all, right? There's there's a difficulty there. But if you're talking about something where it's like, oh, this is a cure for this illness, right? This, which would, it just, you know, one of the things that's kind of wild about the real world is how many miracle drugs we have. We don't call them miracle drugs, but like we have a lot of cures to a lot of things where it's like you take this pill or you get this injection or you do this thing, and this previously, you know, this thing that used to kill everybody kills nobody as a direct consequence. That's a realistic result in medicine in a way that is legitimately very hard to like wrap your head around. Where it's like I'm just trying, like basically almost any vaccine is an example of this. Of like, not any vaccine, but most vaccines, like flu vaccines and things like that, less so. But when you're talking about a vaccine for an illness that will just straight up kill you, they're miracle drugs, right? The vaccine for, I'm thinking of the obvious ones and not the one that I'm trying to think of. Rabies. The rabies vaccine is a miracle drug. It's less obvious when you're dealing with stuff like smallpox, but you take the rabies vaccine after you've been infected. The rabies vaccine is a treatment. You do it before you show symptoms, because if you've already shown symptoms, you're gonna die. Right? The second that you've shown symptoms of rabies, you are dead. It's just a thing that kills you every single time, right? And the rabies vaccine will fully just save your life. And that's a fucking miracle drug, right? Obviously, things like smallpox, we managed to eradicate one of like the most lethal forces that has ever been arrayed against humanity, and we just kind of like eradicated it in a few decades with access to the vaccine. There's so much like amazing technology that we have invented, and it is, I think, very easy to forget the absolute like insanity of what has been accomplished in the medical field. It's so it's mind-boggling to think of, like for the vast majority of human history, we had no medicine. We had no ability to make our bodies like repair themselves beyond very, very normal, like, okay, take a long rest, restore like, you know, 1 hit die worth of fucking HP. Like, a lot of it is like, to put it in like D&D terms, it's like a lot of things that can go wrong with your body prevent you from taking a long rest. And for a very long time, the best medicine could do was make it so that you could take a long rest. But that was not common. The bulk of what medicine was killing you. Like, that's legitimately what the bulk of medicine was for most of the, like, time that we've had things. Is like, okay, you go to a person who tells you to do a thing, and maybe you survive the treatment. Does surviving the treatment give you a higher probability of surviving the illness? No. No, it does not. Not in any way. These are completely unrelated factors. This is particularly true in the modern era. But in but it's also true before that, right? It's not like, you know, TCM and shit like that was meaningfully superior, right? You know, let's not forget that, you know, one of the core treatments for damn near everything worldwide for rich people was to give you mercury poisoning. Like, let us not forget that. It's very important when people think about traditional medicine to remember that the traditional medicine that people think of these days that like does nothing is the stuff that wasn't made illegal because it kills people. There's a bunch of traditional medicines that just killed you. Or they caused all sorts of other problems as well, but often they would just kill you. So, and those are all illegal now because we've been able to demonstrate that they will kill you. Anyway. But yeah, we have a lot of like, we have like a lot of fake stuff that sort of like pretends that it's like medicine. Like, orthodontics is like a weird religious cult. It's not like a science or a study. Like, it's not that's not a medical field. Orthodontics is just a weird cult, and they regularly kill or paralyze children with orthodontics. And yet they're still given like space in hospitals and shit because people think it's a real thing and it's just not. Am I thinking of the right thing? No, orthopedics. I think it's orthopedics. Maybe orthodontists is the people who do your teeth. There's too many of these fucking... Is it... Yes, it's the orthopedics, not the orthodontists. I apologize to the orthodontists. I apologize. I apologize to the orthodontists. I don't know anything about orthodontics. Maybe the orthodontists are also part of some weird religious cult. Yeah, all the many orthodontics in chat. But look, they're used to people being mad at them because what they do for a living is torture children. So, like,
Never seen one before.
Look, I had braces. I remember that shit. So people being mad at orthodontists is not an unusual thing. But generally for different reasons. Is it orthopedics? No, it's some other I think it has a specific name. God, it's I think orthopedic might actually be the like just general study. But it's got some weird name. I think orthopedic is like the actual like category. Chiropractic, that's the word. Yes, it's the chiropractors. Chiropractic is not a real thing. I'm so sorry to the orthopedic. It's not some claim it to be a cult. It's literally that is the origin point. That's the origin point of it. And they regularly paralyze children because they're not doctors. There are some doctors who are chiropractors, but first and foremost, chiropractic is not a medicine. It's not a field of medicine. God. All the orthodontists, the orthopedic, everybody and all the people who do anything involving bones are just freaking out at this point. Look, I am sorry. I should learn how names work. I should learn nouns. I'm very bad with nouns. Well, no, that's the thing, is that it kills enough people that it doesn't do good. Because instead of getting real medical care, people go to them and get paralyzed.
Beats me.
You know? Like, that's kind of the key, is that instead of getting real medicine from, like, a sports medicine or an injury doctor or something like that, they go to a chiropractor and the chiropractor fucking kills them. That's like... And maybe you don't get killed by your chiropractor, but you know who you could have gone to instead of a chiropractor is a fucking massage therapist. Because they do the same job. But the massage therapist doesn't think that they have the capacity to go beyond what a massage can do. Whereas a chiropractor is jumped up on a bunch of fucking propaganda and thinks that they're a doctor. The most important... So, I'm a certified massage therapist, okay? The thing that you are taught before anything else is that you are not a doctor. And if you pretend that you're a doctor, you're going to kill people. That's the most important thing that you as a massage therapist learn, is you're not a doctor, you are not an expert in sports medicine, you are not an expert in medicine, period. If someone has any sort of a physical ailment that seems like it's a problem, right? You need to go to a doctor. Yes, all of my massages involve Garrick's Forge. Yeah, the issue with cross training in a field like that is that it normalizes the idea that this thing, which is fake, is the same as the real thing. So, going to a person who does chiropractic for the lulz, but is an actual medical doctor, and they call themselves a chiropractor for branding, is very different than going to a chiropractor, right? There's such a huge difference between these things. But in addition, doctors are just as susceptible to believing in absolute bullshit lunacy as anyone else. And so when a doctor falls into just fake shit that was made up by weird cults, they'll say weird stuff. Right? Like, ask an American doctor whether circumcision of an infant is genital mutilation. And every American doctor will say no, or it's complicated. Every American doctor. Ask any doctor outside the United States. Any doctor outside the United States, every single one of them will say that's obviously genital mutilation. That's obviously what that is. No questions asked. If you don't have consent to do a thing like that, obviously it's genital mutilation. So you have to realize that, like, doctors are susceptible to the same kinds of crazy indoctrination as everybody else is, right? And so a person who is simultaneously a sports medicine doctor and a chiropractor, I would trust infinitely less than I would trust a person who's just a sports medicine doctor. I just simply would immediately distrust their medical opinion because of that. In the same way that when, like, a medical doctor who's a skin specialist says, oh, the problem with your skin is that you have eaten plants, and if you just go to an all-meat diet, that will cure your skin condition. Here, let me share some sources with you on that. Here's Dr. Peterson and Dr. Joe Rogan of the Joe Rogan Experience discussing the dangers of eating plants. Not a joke. I mean, it is a joke, but it's actually a real thing that happened. That's a real thing that happened with a doctor. It's wild stuff. But anyway, the part of the issue with that kind of stuff is that if you have back problems, to some degree, in a lot of medical communities, the medical community has basically stepped back and said, okay, well, this is the realm of magic, not science now, because we're just going to let the chiropractors rule the day. Like, legitimately, they have, like, ceded the territory to a cult instead of just, like, having actual back specialists. And some of the people who do that kind of work are not buying into the bullshit of the actual, like, thinger. Again, there's, like, a lot of people who claim they're chiropractors but are not. They're doctors, they're not chiropractors, right? But again, anytime someone is doing that, they're normalizing the idea of a field that's fundamentally bad. Anyway, it's a whole thing. Yeah, the medical stuff is very interesting because of the fact that there's so much. I will point out, by the way, chiropractors are a problem worldwide. There's chiropractors in Singapore. It's a thing. That's not a specifically American problem. I feel like there's a lot of like
I think we can take it.
the ancestry that like doctoring has of being fundamentally the purview of fail-sons of British noblemen is more noticeable in some fields than others, right? But it's always present, and it's always a thing to bear in mind, is that this is a field that fundamentally was like a bunch of people who were just kind of sociopaths and wanted to like experiment on people. That's where like the field comes from. And all the good stuff that's being done with it in the last 100 years is fighting against institutional pressures of a system that's fundamentally built off of just like doing weird experiments for the lulz, right? Mental health care has the same problem, which I think is distinct from the medical doctoring. Mental health care has a similar problem where it's like, to a large degree, they care more about the sort of like institution than about the actual the patients. This is a problem with institutions generally, but in particular, like these like weird colonial institutions, you end up with particularly weird stuff like that. But it's really remarkable the number of things that exist in the world that are fundamentally tied to just like people saying crazy shit. Just like weird random cultists created this thing, right? Like if you look at the like fat phobia in the medical field as like an example, like if you have any medical problem on Earth, your survival rate is higher if you are heavier. Any medical problem. If you get cancer, you better not be fat before you get cancer. You have, like, you know, A heart attack? You better not be thin before you had a heart attack. If you have almost any medical problem, you have to get really obese before your odds of survival start going down instead of up. Which makes sense because you have a bunch of calories built in, and a lot of things cause problems with your ability to consume more calories. A lot of things come with nausea. But beyond that, like, there isn't a lot of actual medical evidence to indicate that I accidentally cast a spell while I was going up and didn't realize that that meant that I was going to stop being invisible. So, like, there's correlative factors to a lot of stuff that doctors are not statisticians, and I'm just gonna say doctors are bad at doing science. I'm just gonna say it. The medical literature is rife with stuff where, well, here's the thing about that increased risk. So, what are those things called? IUDs. Let's talk about IUDs and let's talk about statistics. Okay, we're gonna do this. So, if you're going to get an IUD, that's an intrauterine device. It's a type of birth control that they put into your body, right? If you put an IUD in your body, one of the things that they will warn you of is that you'll have an increased risk of an ectopic pregnancy, right? An ectopic pregnancy is a pregnancy where instead of it going to where it's supposed to go, it's the fetus starts growing in the wrong place, and those are 100% fatal. It's 100% fatal if it's not treated. Ectopic pregnancies are a big deal. If this thing increases the risk of getting an ectopic pregnancy, that's very useful information, and that's important medical information. It doesn't increase the probability that you're going to get an ectopic pregnancy. It reduces by orders of magnitude the probability that you get an ectopic pregnancy. IUDs increase the probability that if you get pregnant, it is an ectopic pregnancy. But they're birth control. The probability that you get an ectopic pregnancy specifically is massively lower with an IUD than it is without birth control. So why did the doctors tell you that it increases your risk of IUD? A risk of an ectopic pregnancy. And as far as I can tell, they're bad at math. And that's the reason. And that's an important thing to understand about doctors, is that they are bad at math and they don't understand how the math works. So you have something that objectively makes you safer, and they will tell you that it's more dangerous. That is a thing that happens. You have to look at the medical literature. You have to be able to read the medical literature and not just read the summary of it by the people who wrote it, because the summary is also not necessarily going to be a very good understanding of the actual data that they have. It's bad. There was a whole thing, I'm trying to remember the book, but it's not just a lot of docs are wacky. It's institutionally, they are required to tell people this. They're required to tell people that it increases their risk because as an institution, the institution believes it. That's the issue. This isn't like individually the doctors are occasionally wacky. This is the medical field has problems where they do not understand mathematics. This ties back into the fat phobia thing in a moment. So there was a study that was done. I'm trying to remember what it was called. It was the China something, but it was a study that they did in China where they studied what people were dying of over the course of a long period of time. And what the study found was that wealthy people tended to die of things that are hard to detect and lethal, right? That poor people died of things that are easily preventable. That's what the study found. I'm sorry, no, that's what the data says. What the study found was that meat kills you. That's what the takeaway was by the people who ran the study, was that if you eat meat, which is a thing that's associated with wealth and privilege, you're more likely to die of colon cancer than you are to die of, an accident. Because if you look at any of the data that they have, it wasn't that year by year your likelihood of dying of colon cancer was higher. It's overall a higher percentage of people were dying of colon cancer if they were eating meat. And the reason for that was that they were living longer and had more opportunities to die of something hard, as opposed to someone who dies of an accident when they're 22 because they're a peasant and don't have access to medical care. So there's a lot of issues with this kind of stuff. And so when it comes to stuff like, every doctor, the first thing they'll tell you when you go into them with any sort of problem is to lose weight. That's the first thing that they'll tell you. It's the second thing they'll tell you. It's the third thing that they'll tell you. And every single time that they tell you that, it's bullshit. It has no bearing on anything. You should really just ignore them. How to manage your weight is something that is individually focused and is something that, there's a bunch of negative externalities to being heavier. There's not nearly as severe as being underweight. Being underweight is the most lethal thing you could do to yourself. If you are underweight, do what you can to get your weight up. It will kill you, and it will kill you fast. It will kill you young. It'll kill you fast. If you have any medical problem, the probability that you die massively spikes. Speaking of random cults, okay, it's not a cult, but like the whole BMI thing is fake. It's just people doing like math off of a chart that a random Swiss dude made 150 years ago or something. I don't remember exactly what he did. There was the BMI chart was created by a guy who was not a doctor and wasn't pretending to be a doctor and wasn't pretending to do anything. He was just a dude going like, oh, I wonder what the average height and weight are of people in my region. And so he did that. He just made a chart. And then a bunch of people who had a vested interest in, telling people that they're overweight, particularly women, but just people generally, said, oh, okay, we can run with this. But the obsession with weight medically, I don't think that started until Twiggy. Like, that's a post-Twiggy phenomenon, right? For people who don't know who Twiggy is, like, my understanding is that, like, beauty standards moved away from women being heavier sometime in, like, the 70s or something like that. It's a very recent phenomenon that, like, thin women are considered attractive instead of unattractive, right? Though, to be fair, I'm probably gleaning that off of, like, half-remembered shit from The Man Show, like, 30 years ago, so maybe take that with a grain of salt. But it does check out with modern expectations. But it turns out it's all tied to racism. Imagine. Look, if the thing that's very funny is that if you like throw a stick at any random thing in the United States, like you play bingo, or not bingo, you play like roulette. You have like a roulette wheel of random bullshit from America, and you just say, oh, well, let me tell you something. the origins of that are white supremacy. If you just say that every single time without fail, that's probably going to be very successful for you as a strategy. The number of times at dinner parties I have said something as a joke is white supremacy. And then I Google it, and it's like, oh, actually. But actually, though, it's usually either like it's usually either white supremacy or evangelical Protestants being completely insane. Often a mix of both, I guess. These are overlapping themes. These are overlapping themes, but a lot of stuff ties into weird stuff. So like to give you an idea, back to the circumcision thing. The reason that Americans circumcise their babies is to prevent them from masturbating. Now, the sad thing is that most people don't realize that's why, but that is why. That is why they do it. All of the justifications that are given for it don't actually have any data to support it. Actually, to be fair, including that one, it actually does not actually increase masturbatory tendencies. But none of the stuff that they claim about health stuff is real. It's all fake. None of that is real. It is not a thing that is practiced anywhere else on Earth, and the reason it's not practiced anywhere else on Earth is because it's obviously genital mutilation, and it's done by people as religious practices as a coming of age ceremony, and that has its own problems to it, right? Because obviously a 16-year-old can't consent, really, but they can at least kind of consent, right? As a coming of age ceremony, it's a thing where it's like, okay, this is something that you could potentially give pushback to, right? Whereas if you do it to an infant, they can't say no. And that's the reason they do it, right? That's the reason that they do it. It's an American Protestant thing.
Beats me.
Many such cases, it turns out. Many such cases of things where it's like, oh, this thing on its face seems extremely barbaric and cruel, but there's got to be a good reason for it, right? No, there doesn't actually. It turns out that no, you don't need to have a good reason for people to do a thing that is seemingly barbaric and cruel. That they can just do a barbaric and cruel thing because someone who didn't want their kid to masturbate lied to them about it. No, sorry, lied to them is the inappropriate term to use. Lied to an entire civilization about its effects. Because, the doctors that do it, they aren't it's not like they believe the general medical, consensus that this is a crazy thing to do. It is obviously abusive and obviously violates your oath as a doctor to do. Right? They don't believe that. They think that it's an obvious health benefit that there just isn't any evidence for. But they don't know what the evidence is because they're doctors. They're not scientists. They're not scientists. They don't understand the math. They didn't go to medical school to study math. Statistics is the number one most misunderstood science, in my opinion. Science. A field of mathematics. People are very, very specifically bad at statistics. This is coming from someone who doesn't have a statistics background. Well, I guess that's not. I don't have a formal statistics education. I do have a statistics background. Have you seen my live stream? I've been doing hobbyist statistics for my entire life. So, not entirely fair to say that I have no background. I have a background. It's just not a trained background. Which is to say, you shouldn't trust me on statistics. My point is that you shouldn't trust me. And as someone who is untrustworthy on statistics, the degree to which other people are so much less trustworthy than me with statistics is very alarming to me. This is the issue, is that like anytime I look at anybody using statistics, whether it's like a news agency or like honestly doctors or like basically anyone using statistics, I'm like, this should be illegal. It should be illegal for like statistics is like dark wizardry that like the mind cannot comprehend. And as dark wizardry that the mind cannot comprehend, we have given access to this tool to everyone, and everyone thinks that they can read it, and nobody can read it. I think that's actually probably the best way to describe statistics, is that everyone, it's as if someone was trying to read Malay, and they don't realize it's Malay. They're just reading it in English, and it's like, well, it's using the same characters as English, and it's like, well, yeah, but it's not English. In the same way that like French is not English, like trying to read French as if it's English, but like Malay is a better example because there's fewer like useful corollaries, which actually maybe makes it a worse example. Maybe I should have used German. The problem with English is that English has too many root languages is the issue. So there's some overlap, but not a ton of overlap with all of them. It's all fine. It doesn't matter. Point being, people are bad at statistics. They're all trained in statistics to a level that's high enough to get them in trouble.
I'm hurt badly.
Isn't every stream an argument stream? Yeah, I can't. I'm not particularly interested in doing debate because I'm not good at it. Like, I'm not good at debate. The issue that I run into and have historically run into for my entire life is that I keep being right, and I'm completely incapable of talking about the things that I want to talk about without people going, ah, yes, I see, you are a madman.
Let's take it. Let's take it.
Part of the issue is that part of the issue is that I'm very bad at nouns. I'm very bad at very specific details. So everything in my head is a loosely connected, like, association of things and systems. So, like, I can have a very strong understanding of how a system interacts, but in order to explain it in a way that feels robust and doesn't feel like someone just kind of raving, nonsense with nothing to back it up, I would need to spend 6 hours doing a research deep dive again to figure out the terminology to describe the specific details of what I'm talking about. It's not unreasonable that people are not convinced by me. I'm definitely not suggesting that it's unreasonable to listen to a maniac spew crazy things and not immediately trust them. Though I do get that as well, which is unfortunate, which is that people will sometimes trust me more than they should, which is why I tend to be very careful when I'm talking about most things, is because with things that I'm not confident on, in terms of like the thing, not, again, like, look, we can, what are words? We don't need to get the nouns correct. We can slander orthodontists and orthopedic surgeons. We can do both of these things.
Let's take it.
However, when we're doing it, we have to make sure that there's someone for whom the slander is correct. And I'm very confident that the actual target of my ire deserves that ire very strongly. But yeah, it's... I do think that we live in a world where having a very strong understanding of statistics and mathematics is intrinsic and important to basic survival. But people don't understand those things. Like, people don't understand compound interest, y'all. Like, and part of that is because they're lied to. So, like, when we got our loan, we were flat out told by the people who do the loan that it doesn't matter if you pay it off early. It is basically, it's not actually doing compound interest. It's all like a preset fee. And that was a lie. That was just a lie. And that's a lie that I think a lot of people are told by the companies that are giving them loans. That it's like, oh, okay, well, you have a monthly payment, and you can pay it off early, but it's going to be the same sum either way that you have to pay off. The interest is not tracked. The interest isn't compounded onto the principal, right? And that's a thing that people are told, which is like, well, that's crazy. Why would you call it interest if it's just a flat fee, right? And like, a flat percentage fee is what is described by that phenomenon, right? And the answer to why it is that they don't call it that they call it interest is because it is interest, and they're lying to you. They're lying to you flat out. It is interest, and if you pay it off early, you pay less interest because you pay less in total because the interest isn't being accumulated onto the principal. And so, like, but like, I repeatedly run into like people who fall for that trap in like a lot of different places where it's like, oh, okay, like this is a, you know, the entire financial sector relies very heavily on the fact that people don't know how to use the credit cards that are in their wallets, and don't understand how interest works. And it's only getting worse over time because the education is getting worse, and the ability to lie to people about what products they are selling is getting worse, and the number of ways that you can do this kind of stuff, yeah, it's literally a compounding effect, right? As misinformation becomes legal and sifts throughout the populace, it becomes easier to make the next piece of disinformation also legal to disseminate amongst the populace. So, because the people that are making the laws don't necessarily understand this shit either, and they now understand it worse than they did before. But in addition, you've now normalized the standard of, okay, like, predatory lending is sometimes okay, as opposed to predatory lending being a description of criminal behavior. Predatory lending is just a description of lending behavior generally. So you end up with a situation where people go, well, why do we have these rules about predatory lending in the first place? Because the things that these people are doing the things that the loan sharks are doing are fundamentally the same thing as what the banks are doing. And that's true, which is why the thing should be illegal when the banks do it too. Yes, that's correct. It is the same thing, and it should be illegal in that case as well. That's also a thing that should be illegal. I am really struggling with these. I was expecting to be able to, like, pull them around to different locations.
Let's take it. Let's take it.
And I think we killed that one. To be able to pull them around to different locations and thus get different things going. You might assume that, like, the reason that I'm doing so badly is because I'm, like, distracted by talking, but I'm actually not that distracted from talking. It is more just like, well, there's a shit ton of these hiding in all over the damn map. I might actually die of exhaustion in here. I just realized that I had weakness, and I haven't trained since... We have multiple levels of EXP? I haven't trained in a hot minute. We should definitely pick up the thinger. Yeah. Well, look, stumbling through the words is fine. Stumbling through the words is fine. I'm just not supposed to stumble through the gameplay. That wasn't me being distracted. The rocks conversation. Like the difference between a science based off of classification, a science studying the behavior of non-active participants, and the study of active participants. They're different fields. They need different. You know. And, look, given the right context, right, the mental construct in your head of that pet rock can do those things, because the mental construct that you've created, the pet component of the pet rock, is all in your head, and you can think and feel. So, that checks out to me. I have there's no issues with that from my perspective. I think that all makes sense. No. Everyone can think. Jury's still out on the plants. Plants, I think I'm still leaning no for the plants. Still leaning no, but it's recently become a maybe. It's recently become a maybe. That is also fair. My mistakes are multitudinous. I make all the mistakes, so you don't have to. Okay, so let's go up. Fuck. See? doing my job. I do it well. Okay, maybe... Maybe we do just, like, kind of pop in, blast them, and try to get back here before the thing ends. Oh, silly me. Before the attack animation finishes. Like, this might be the way to do it, honestly. I don't like doing it this way. It's all stressful and shit. But it's very fast in terms of game time, which is probably what I really need more than anything. It's also very fast in terms of real time, now that I think about it, but that's beside the point. We'll pretend that I was going to be able to save time by engaging in crazy behavior that doesn't make any sense. Let us go with
Ready.
no, I'll go Fireball.
Ready to use.
Let's see, cast Invis. I guess it doesn't matter that much. I should have the thing up, right? Oh, I didn't have it on. Okay, we're putting it on. It doesn't matter. As long as we don't get Ice Blast, every other spell is fine. So, save the game, Invis. Okay, all set. All setty set. Yeah, I wish that I had like. I wish I had more people to talk to about media. The issue is that like no one ever like has played the same games that I have played, and I can't talk to people about it. Like I can't talk to stream about it because it's all spoilers. I can't talk to my friends about it because none of them have played the specific games that I've played. It's a problem. It's a problem. I was lured into Expedition 33 on false pretenses. False pretenses. And it turned out it was really good. But false pretenses. Were these pretenses supplied by the authors in any way? No, they were supplied by me in my head, but that's beside the point. That's beside the point. But yeah, it's really solid. I've talked on multiple occasions about how much the battle system for Legend of Dragoon impressed me, and Legend of Dragoon, Mario RPG games like that, have like these really cool turn-based combat systems that have like fun skill-based elements to them built into the combat system. And Expedition 33 is like that. It's like it's very cool. I was very impressed with the mechanical side of the game. It felt very much like they perfectly optimized it for if you are like an extreme JRPG nerd, and I would describe it as a JRPG, right? It's a French game, but it's a JRPG. That's a genre, it's not a nationality. And I will die on this hill. And the they did a great job of making it so that like you can play it as someone who comes from like a more like action game background, and you can outskill the fights. You can simply get good. That is a thing that you can do. Not using like not like cheesing it, which is like, you know, like if you're using like Quina to do 9,999 damage every turn because you used a Phoenix down until she ended up with 1 HP, like that's like a very cheesy one-shot strat that's great. That's like top tier JRPG nonsense, right? Love that, right? No complaints about that. But that's not what I'm discussing here. And so if you have like, but like, just like, okay, well, if you simply parry every attack, the enemy can't hurt you. If you simply get good, the enemy can't hurt you. Which is great. But it's balanced with, if you simply nerd hard enough, you can kill everything in one hit. So you don't need to dodge anything because it never gets a chance to hit you. So there's this balance there of like the defensive potential of your party is broadly defined by your personal skill. And the offensive potential of your party is defined by your personal tactics and like crunchiness, like how much you've crunched and grinded and done whatever other stuff that you're going to do, right? There's lots of ways to increase your damage, and they mostly involve, you know, but the things that are going to massively increase your damage are not skill-based, right? You're only going to increase your damage by a little bit by getting good at the actual, like, the button presses. The primary way that you get higher damage is by going, oh, what if I do this, you know, clever bullshit to, you know, combine these factors and do this thing, and, like, you know, do all the shenanigans that you would expect from a JRPG. So they did a great job where I do feel like basically if you come from either background, you can beat the game on the hardest difficulty without needing to get good at the other thing. Which I think is very interesting. I think that that's not a typical interaction. And for my part, I did kind of a mix of both. There was a lot of stuff that I didn't have access to because of the way that I played, because obviously I'm a pacifist, which causes problems. It causes problems for me. It just does. It just causes problems for me that I'm not willing to attack anything that doesn't attack me. Okay, just like I actually struggled with how to progress at one point in the game. Because there's as is commonly the case with bosses, there's a boss that's like, the fight is triggered by just getting close to the boss, right? And I was like, is there a way for me to like bypass this boss trigger? Because the boss is not explicitly charging me and trying to kill me. It's just standing there. And I don't want to fight it. And I eventually made like a exemption for bosses, because most of the time with a boss it's triggered by a cutscene, right? Like that's the typical way the bosses work. But sometimes they're just standing there, and it's like, well, no, I need you to come attack me during a cutscene or something. What is this cinematic bullshit? You're not allowed to have like the boss like appear in a cool way in the physical world and then share physical space with me if it's not going to charge me. What is this? What is this nonsense? Unacceptable, unplayable game. Actually, I take it back. All the positive things I've said about the game, completely unplayable. But it's good. People should play it if they enjoy JRPGs, and the plot's pretty good. The ending's bad, but the plot's pretty good. The ending to me felt desynchronous in the way that certain other games have also felt desynchronous. The problem is I can't say which other games, because the similarities are more than just the desync between the narrative prior to the ending and the ending, in a way where it's like I making people think of those properties when they're thinking of this might give them spoilers for what I'm talking about in terms of like how the ending's actually going to go. So I can't like actually talk about which properties that come to mind, which sucks. But that's fine. But just like with those properties, right? Like the ending cinematic is honestly desynced enough that it's like I just don't even treat it as canon. Like it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, this doesn't feel narratively like it follows. This is a really big jump. Which would make more sense if the rest of the narrative didn't feel as cohesive as it did in its messaging and its framing.
Beats me.
Like they did a really good job with it. I'm very impressed with it. The dialogue and narrative are very character driven in a way that I much prefer in writing. The characters behave according to their personal motivations and intentions. They're not just like a stand-in for the author to explain shit to you, which is a huge problem in a lot of writing, especially game writing. I shouldn't say especially game writing. It's a huge problem in most multimedia writing, and it's a significant problem in like books as well. Is like, okay, the purpose of this character saying this thing in this scene is to advance the plot, right? As opposed to the reason that the plot is what it is because these characters want these things to happen. These are the desires of the characters, which leads to the plot. It's the plot leading to the behavior of the characters in most cases, which is just fully backward. And that is partially an aesthetic preference. But I will defend it as the superior aesthetic. And I'm allowed to do that because I'm also a writer. And thus pretentious. Wait, no, not pretentious, and thus correct, and thus an expert in the field, and I can speak authoritatively on writing because as a writer, I'm an expert. Yeah, we'll go with that. I can definitely speak with authority on the way that I interact with narratives. Unfortunately,
Never seen one before.
it's not... It doesn't seem like a lot of people these days I feel like we lack a lot of the linguistic descriptives to explain what we like and dislike about properties a lot of the time. Like, I feel like a lot of the time... Oh, I was talking about my preferences. My writing preferences are objectively superior, and I can say that as an author, because as an author, I'm an expert and not pretentious at all. That's the ticket. Basically, I was saying that character-driven plot is much more powerful than plot-driven characters. If you come up with a plot more than the most bare bones, before you come up with the characters, there's not a lot of meat on those bones. The characters cease to be people, which is kind of like what's the whole point of storytelling is to talk about people, right? So if the characters don't behave like people behave, it's and then like kind of what's the point, right? And there's a place for fucking monologuing or whatever, right? Like there's a place for pretentious artists to create art where the point of the art is to wax poetic about whatever bullshit that they have on their mind. I certainly cannot complain about that. But man, like if you're gonna just stick words in their mouths and have like a philosophical argument with yourself in your head, just like make it at a dinner party or something, right? Like that's what The Great Gatsby is for. Don't have the characters do stuff, just have them argue with each other. That's what they're there for. I always really struggle because a lot of popular writers, popular is not the right, like pop writers, as in like people who make like popular media, not writers who are popular. There's a distinction there, because I don't think I've ever seen Stephen King do this, but like a lot of pop writers, I think, don't really understand characterization. And so, like, if you're talking about, like, what do they focus on in your creative writing classes in high school, right? Like, what are you taught to care about in school? You're taught to care about themes, you're told to care about the fucking color of the drapes, you're told to care about all of these things that are accoutrement to the story. They are not the story. They are things that are additional to it, which are, you know, fine or whatever, right? But they're not the thing. And there's not really a lot of discussion of, like, characterization. Like, there's a lot of talk of theme, there's a lot of talk of, like, other things like that, but, like, there's certainly, I don't think was... The only time in my English classes that they were talking about, like, strong creative choices with the voice of a character, I think they were talking about... They were trying to explain why this character had to use the N-word in this novel. And I'm not kidding. I think that might be the only time that characterization was meaningfully explored. Was explaining why it's incredibly important in Huckleberry Finn that they say the N-word a bunch, or whatever. I don't remember if it was Huckleberry Finn. Right? And I don't necessarily disagree, right? Like, I actually don't have a problem with characters saying things like that if it is appropriate for them to do so. It's inappropriate for your hero to do that, unless your hero is black, in which case go for it. But, like, there's like a there's a dynamic there, And by the way, unless your hero is black, and you are yourself black, because I'm not gonna tell random white people that they understand this well enough that they're going to use it appropriately, because they will not. They will not. They'll just write in a black character because they want to use the N-word themselves. The characterization doesn't get as much emphasis as the stuff that's, like, I think considered more, like, artsy, right? And, you know, maybe it's because of the British, right? Because, like, the British seem to hate humans for some reason. But, like, I don't know what, like, the historical reasoning for it is. But for whatever reason, the people aspect of narrative has not necessarily been particularly emphasized in a lot of stuff. And that causes an issue because, like, if you write... So the issue with plot... The issue with focusing on your plot is that your plot isn't that interesting. It just isn't. I don't care what your plot is. It's like, oh, that's a cool idea. And that's where it ends. That's the limit to what you can do with plot. Characters make you cry. Plots don't. Nobody gives a shit about your plot. So it's an important thing to be able to recognize which component of your story is the thing that people are latching onto, and generally speaking, that's going to be the characters. So anyway, Expedition 33 has very character-driven dialogue. There's a very, very funny disconnect sometimes between the conversation that the characters will have out loud and the narrativization that happens afterward. That's just really funny. There's occasionally a disconnect there, where two characters will have a very tense confrontational interaction, and then it's like, oh, these two really enjoyed their time together, and it's like, oh, okay. I'm not sure we saw the same scene, narrator. But, like, oh, you assholes are downstairs. Oh, that's a problem. You all are gonna kill me. I thought you were in this room over here, and you all are standing right here. Oh, I'm dead. We got. I'm like, oh no, you're not where I thought you were at all. This is a problem. Okay, if you're here. How did I not notice them being there? Did I notice them and then immediately memory hole that once I walked into the other room or something? What the hell's going on here? Yeah, it's very common for my experience with narratives is that a lot of the time they don't take the narrative before the ending isn't really that strong, and so they trap me in this, like, Chekhov's ending where, like, whether I enjoy the media that I'm watching depends entirely on how they end it. Because they're throwing a bunch of balls in the air and they're not catching any of them. They're throwing a bunch of balls in the air, they're not catching any of them, and then at the very end they need to try to do a flourish that catches all of these balls at the same time, and they almost always fail. There have been some things that really nail it. There's some things that really, like, nail the landing, but it's very uncommon. Usually, like, almost everything that I give the benefit of the doubt to, I didn't need to give the benefit of the doubt to. Or rather, I needed to give it the benefit of the doubt ideologically. But, you know, it ultimately not deserving of it. It's like when people play like a witch plot straight, like a 1970s like Protestant witch hunt where the witch is the witch and is like actually an evil witch. Playing that trope straight nowadays is like, man, there's way more interesting things that we've done with these plots. This is just like a weird place to go with this, right? Like it's weird. Like, how good of a witch story do you think that you have in you that you can just write a story where some random child is secretly evil and possibly having sex with a devil, right? Like, that is not an easy thing to land. Like, narratively, good luck landing that, right? Because it's like, what do you have to say about this? What you have to say is that sometimes small children are evil witches. Okay, you know, like this is fine. And sometimes small children are evil witches, and society is correct to persecute them.
Beats me.
That seems correct. That seems like what I, you know. That seems accurate to my lived experience, is that the group of people who's the most hostile and angry and, you know, most likely to yes, sometimes witch hunts, yay. And look, as a subversion, it can be fun occasionally. Like, on a very rare case, I'll give you a, okay, look, this spooky kid that everyone in town is afraid of, everyone's in town is afraid of, and they are thinking that she's killing everyone's livestock. Actually, no, she actually was doing it. Occasionally, you can do it, right? You can do that occasionally. Like, as an industry, it can be done on occasion. I'll give you one, maybe a decade. That might be, that honestly might be too many. That might be too common. Right? But you have to be real clever with it. Like that, you need a real strong script to make something like that work. To make something like that hit. Because it has to be a twist. It can't be that, like, you can't just be playing into the expectations of the audience that thinks that witches are real. You know? Okay, look, I'm familiar with the fact that Wiccans sometimes call themselves witches or whatever. I don't care. They're not actually doing magic spells. I do not care. I do not respect your religion. I don't care what religion it is. I do not respect it. You are not doing spells. You are not a witch in the sense that we are discussing, which is people who do magic spells. Okay, so we pissed off the Christians, we pissed off the orthopedic surgeons, we pissed off the orthodontists, we pissed off the Wiccans. Who can we go after? Who can we go after next? Anyway, point being that a lot of narratives rely on landing a very difficult ending. It's like mechanically difficult to pull off. It's not like, oh, okay, like they just really beefed it at the end. It's like, oh, okay, in order to be able to make this premise and this narrative that you have created land, you need to, in the ending, figure out a way to make me love or hate this character in a way that you haven't managed to do for the entire plot. That's what you have to do. Is you have to create an emotional resonance that didn't exist in the last 2 minutes of your narrative. Good luck. Right? This is one of the issues that people who write twist endings, which is most people, have, is that if you write a twist ending, you now have to supply emotional resonance for a new narrative, because you've basically changed what the narrative is at the last second. So now you have to actually supply like narrative meaning to a plot that the person hasn't experienced yet, right? There's nothing wrong with twist endings. Twist endings can work really great, but they're really hard. They're hard to pull off. And I guess one could argue that they're not hard to pull off because people like a bunch of things that have really garbage twist endings that don't match with the rest of the narrative. But honestly, I would say that a lot of the time in stuff, people actually, like, I would say that especially in horror, I would say most horror succeeds despite its twist as opposed to because of it. Legitimately, I'm trying to think of like examples. I think an example of a really good twist is actually Frozen. Frozen has a really good twist. The twist in Frozen is perfectly executed, I think. I haven't watched the movie in a long time, but like Frozen has an excellent twist. It demonstrates why twists work, right? Where it's like, okay, we have supplied you with expectations. In this case, over the course of decades, we have supplied you with expectations of how this is going to go, and it's not going to go that way. And that was well done. But Frozen would have been a good movie without a twist. They didn't need the twist in order to make the movie happen, right? Like the movie isn't reliant on the ending. And a lot of it comes down to like narratively, a lot of storytellers these days don't realize that questions are boring. Giving me an engaging question, I do not give a shit. Maybe this might come from the fact that I myself am a writer. Ideas are nothing. You know, like, there's a reason that, like, for most writers, if you say, like, oh, where do you get your ideas? It's, like, the most boring question. Because the answer is everywhere. Everything is constantly ideas. The number of, like, possible narratives that I could, in theory, write, I couldn't write because I would run out of time on Earth to write it, okay? I could not write the things that I have ideas for, right? Even if I wrote... I was going to say faster, but I think that it works better to just end it with wrote. Even if I actually still was writing actively, like, which I occasionally will, tinker in a project. I actually opened up the problem with Revolution, problem of Revolution, the other day. So I might get back into that at some point. I just need to figure out how to do it. I actually really like what I wrote, which is a good sign. But it's a pain in the ass because I now need to figure out some mechanical shit for how I want to handle things. And I should probably write a couple of essays on the nature of fucking the magic system in order to make it so that I can more coherently explain or translate into game mechanics. That's probably where I should have started, is treating it like a book and not treating it like a game. Anyway, point being, like, every writer, everyone who writes anything knows that, like, there's a bajillion possible stories that you could write, and they would all be good. Let's see. I have played that game. I have played that game. No. That's not my story. That's just my favorite author's story. I went back to it the other day. I don't know how likely it is that I'm going to do a ton more work with it. It just depends on whether I make the time for it. But I have cut idle games out of my life now because I've finished them all. I finished every idle game in the world, so I'm done. Maybe in like 5 years I'll come back and play all the new ones that have come out since then, but I finished all the idle games, so... Ooh! That's an hourglass! We got an hourglass! Oh, so anyway, the thing about narratives is, and I've talked about this before on multiple occasions, is basically like... questions are cheap, right? Which is what like the premise of your plot is. The premise of your plot is like the question. It's like, ooh, what if Space Invaders but French, right? I mean, one doesn't, but Ark do. One doesn't finish an idle game unless they're me. So I guess I'm just built different. Call it autism, call it ADHD, call it whatever you want, but some of us are just built different. So anytime I'm playing a game, I have a specific goal in mind, which is to enjoy myself and do fun math. Well, okay, I don't always need to do fun math, but usually I'd like to get some fun math out of it if I'm playing a game. So I have played every idle game that exists to the point where it ceases to be interesting, which is completing the game. Once it stops being interesting, you've beaten the game. That's my general thoughts on the matter. So some idle games you can finish in like minutes. Some of them you can finish in seconds. Like you just open that thing up and it's like, the vibes on this, not interesting, and you just immediately close it. Some of them you don't even have to open the game to be done with them. You can finish them so fast. I would make an amazing speedrunner. Because I can finish games before I even open them. It's truly some impressive stuff. Again, built different. But yeah. So anyway, so I certainly have the time to get more writing done. It's just a matter of whether I'm actually going to do it. There's a specific like head space that I need to get into for writing that is difficult to do while also being a person. Like, you get the best writing done when you've had a long period of being a person and you're like, okay, I could just not be a person for a while, right? Like, if I just spend the next month and a half not being a person, I could get some really great writing done. It's important that you get the initial personage in. Like, you have to be a person for a while first, because otherwise you're not going to have anything interesting to write. So you have to, like, balance your time between having interesting things to talk about and to make, and having the time to write about them in an interesting way, which requires that you ignore your friends, family, and loved ones for a few weeks. That's kind of the key, is that, you need to first establish your humanity, and then you abandon that humanity to make yourself a writer for a while. But the establishing your humanity is the really important thing that you need to do at the start. See, the problem that a lot of people make is that they try to do writing without establishing their fundamental humanity first, and then they write schlock. They write total garbage. Like, if you ever see like the kind of writing that's indistinguishable from like a Chat GPT prompt, that's written by people who have not invested into their fundamental humanity in a while. And you know, it shows in the writing, because you can't write unless you're a person. And everyone is a person, right? We're all people, but it matters whether you invest in that or not, whether you invest into establishing relationships. It matters whether you whether you care about the world. Caring about the world is a very important aspect of writing. You have to care. It's really hard work. Like, the idea of writing without caring about the world, like the real world, is very alien to me. I don't understand it. Because to me, like a large portion, like the reason that I'm doing the problem of revolution is to explore the problem of revolution, right? Like the nature of revolution is to consolidate power. So how do you have a revolution to depose an emperor? Because it's a thing that's done, right? But it's not consistently done. And usually what you get out the other side of a revolution to depose the emperor is a new emperor, right? And generally speaking, the people whose fundamental goal was to get rid of the emperor don't seem to care that much about the fact that they just replaced the emperor with another emperor, right? So they would have cared when they started the revolution, but by the end of the revolution, they don't seem to care that much. And I think that that's an interesting element of revolution as a concept that's very difficult to parse. And a lot of it comes down to the fact that a revolution is fundamentally built on violence, and it's built on hierarchy, and it's built on the creation of a new hierarchy. And the question of how to create a hierarchy is one that we have a lot of comprehension of. We're good at building hierarchies as like society. We're good at it. It's a thing. We've got that locked in. We're very good. But how to dissolve a hierarchy? Harder, right? Because there's the consolidation of power, and then there is the dissolution of that power. These are both required, and trying to identify how you do it mechanically is something that's interesting. The emperor does have to group. See, that's the thing. The problem with revolutionaries is that most revolutionaries don't want there to be no emperor. They want there to be an emperor with groove. And I say that, but that's not... I do also want to clarify, I don't actually believe that. I do not believe that most revolutionaries secretly want there to be a king. I think that most revolutionaries fail to deal with how difficult building a society is, as opposed to just building a hierarchy. It's just like there's just such a strong disconnect between the difficulty of the tasks that people end up struggling, because how do you do it? How do you do it? And the answer may surprise you and will exist. The answer to the problem of revolution will be specifically and directly answered in my upcoming game, The Problem of Revolution.
There isn't any room. No room. No room.
I shouldn't talk to us much about the themes. It's gonna spoil things. It's going to spoil things. It's not going to spoil anything. First of all, because there's never going to be a finished product, but also because the fact that that's the fact that that's principally the question that the narrative is asking is not hidden information. that's pretty early that we're learning what we're working with here on one level or another. Okay. Well, you say visual novel. See, it's not a visual novel. It's using Ren'Py, but it's definitely not a visual novel. And the way you can tell it's not a visual novel is that I'm not an artist. And I do not give it, and I have aphantasia. I do not give a shit. So, as someone with aphantasia, who does not give a shit, I have not bothered putting any visuals in. The only visuals that the narrative is going to have, probably ever, is the user interface, which I'll have to build at some point. But predominantly, it's going to be a math game, right? There's going to be... The game itself is going to be a game of math. The narrative is not super math heavy, though some of the characters involved may or may not be fucking nerds. Look, you can't write about Revolution and not having nerds in your narrative, okay? You have to have nerds. Imagine trying to run a revolution without any nerds. Stalin couldn't have killed half as many people if he didn't have Lenin to help him. I actually don't know that much about the history of the Soviet Union. I think Lenin was a nerd, though. I don't think Stalin was a nerd. Lenin was like a theory nerd who was kind of an asshole. Stalin was like a monster. Actually, funnily enough, there was one point where I was playing enough idle games, I was like, you know, I could make an idle game out of this. But actually, I find that so Ren'Py is basically just Python, and we're just gonna randomly drop another skill set that I picked up over the course of my very long life. But the whatchamacallit. But yeah, I'm familiar with Python. I took Python in college. I was originally planning on being a programmer. And then I decided not to because of some reason. I don't even remember. I don't even remember. I've always enjoyed programming. But anyway, so Ren'Py is very convenient for me because my particular set of neurodivergencies make it so that I really get upset when the engine is fighting with me. I do not like the engine to be fighting with me, and I do not like the engine to be tied to visuals. Because I do not give a shit about your eyes. I just don't. I just don't care about the visuals. They are not important to me. So things like when, like Neverwinter Nights, like tagged, like this happens with a few types of games, but tagging the animation for a thing to the effect of the thing, so that if the animation bugs out, it causes a problem with the actual thing. Or like having like, okay, I should be getting like 20 attacks this round, but because they all have to physically activate and show an attack animation, you can't get 20 attacks in a round. You can only max out at like 8 or something like that, but it's not like the engine doesn't tell you that, right? Because it's not a limitation of the math, it's a limitation of the animation. That kind of stuff annoys the hell out of me. But basically just anything that anything that I feel like I'm fighting against what the engine wants to do, I'm happy to build from scratch the entire thing if it means that I do not have to deal with the engine at all. I want the engine to just disappear out of my field of view for me to do whatever the fuck I want with it. Which is why things like RPG Maker, I'm just like get very frustrated with, because it's just needlessly limiting in so many ways. It's like constantly limiting you in so many different ways, and so like aggressively hostile to like really basic tropes that you would expect from an RPG that you just can't do. Like I'm trying to think of like some of the details, but there's like a bunch of stuff where like that is like in particular like the enemy targeting and things like that, like targeting systems, accuracy system. There's just a bunch of weird stuff where I was like, oh, okay, so in order to do this, I would have to rebuild the entire combat engine. So why would I bother having your combat engine in the first place? I don't think we're going to loot those bodies over there. I think those are going to remain unlooted. Okay, I think we've cleared out everything now. So we just need to pick up those bodies over here.
I have too much.
But anyway, so RenPy is nice because it's basically just Python, which means that I can just do whatever I want. I did unfortunately have to have an interaction with a programmer friend of mine, where I had to ask them what the name of a piece of code that you can call later is, because I knew that I needed to use a function for a thing, but I couldn't remember the word function, and I couldn't remember the exact syntax to make it in Python, so I couldn't Google it because I don't know the word. I don't know the name that I'm looking for. Because like no one's going to describe that like in, you know, their question or answer. Everybody's going to use the term function, but I haven't been in the field for decades.
There isn't any room.
So like I just don't remember the terminology.
No room.
But anyway, so I had to ask a very embarrassing question. I didn't have to ask anything, you know, complicated. Just like, oh yeah, what's the name for this thing so I can Google it? And they were very confused because it's not the kind of thing that you get as a question. It took a while before we settled on the answer to my question because it's like, well, clearly you're not just talking about a function. It's like, oh, no, yeah. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Thank you. Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
There isn't any room. Can't carry it. There isn't any room.
I have no more need of your skills.
No room. No room. No
Okay,
room.
so
No, I have too
anyway,
much.
it's a fun project, and when I was reading it again, I enjoyed it. I feel like every time I
No room,
write
no
something,
room.
I'm legally obligated
No
to
room.
add a cute dog to it, and I don't know how it keeps
There
happening.
isn't any room.
But it seems like every project that I work on has a cute dog giving people, you know, mischievous expressions and things like that.
No room.
This is just a thing that has to happen every time.
No room. No room.
I think it's a good rule. It's a good rule, but it wasn't a rule that I realized I had
No room. There isn't any room.
until my wife called it out. She called it out as the wrong term. She was like, ah, yes, you have a cute dog again. This is good. This is the sole redeeming value of your work. Continue making cute dogs. She did not say that. She did not. She didn't say that part. Well, she did. She did say continue. No, she didn't even say continue making cute dogs. That part's just implied. That part is implication and subtext, which are important components. of writing. Yeah, I should probably get that project off the ground. The problem is that it's a really big project, and I'm the issue with me is that I just don't make small projects, and I really should, because like the way that I got through writing my books is that I was like, okay, well, I am going to struggle to write for more than 10 minutes at a time, and if this project goes on for like a month, there's a risk that I just abandon the project. So what I did was I wrote each book as a self-contained narrative and then combined them, and the combined total is like a pretty like a sizable novella length. I think it's like 100 pages or something total, something like that. Oh right, I need to hit the altar or something with it. So basically I just wrote little things. Who gets fire? I'll give you fire. I guess I should have given it to the dragon. No, that would make intuitive narrative sense, but is mechanically a very bad idea. So we need to find the pearls in my inventory. We have 2 of them. This is the scouring pearl. This is the pearl of purity. Well, the issue is that I can't talk about the things that I want to talk about with the French game. What I want to talk about is how confused I am by the way that people talk about it. Because I agree that it's good. I agree that the narrative is good, but I'm very confused by what people take away from the narrative, because I feel like they take the ending cutscene as being more canon than they take the rest of the game. In a way that I'm just confused by. Because they're kind of at odds. Yeah, I find it like it's just sort of like an interesting thing. But going into the why of it and the my actual thoughts on it are would require going into extreme spoilers for a thing that just came out. So I don't think that that's appropriate. So yep. And it's just sad because I don't have anyone to talk about these things with except Kaz, and she already heard me say it, and I need to say it 15 more times before I'm done talking about it. I need to keep talking about it, and I can't because I don't have anybody to talk about it with. See, the thing that's great when I get to an ending and I'm dissatisfied with the ending, this is something that's very sad. Is that normally I don't feel bad because I say this is a product that, as I established earlier with like the juggling example, what did not finish the example is like people will be juggling all these balls, right? And then they don't catch any of the balls and they drop all of them when they end the narrative, right? The entire narrative hinged on them ending it correctly. And by correctly, I don't mean in a specific way, but in a way that manages to catch all these balls, which unfortunately for them might really limit their creative options because they put all of these balls in the air and there's only so many ways that you can physically catch them, right? So sometimes narratives do that. And when a narrative just throws all the balls in the air and then like doesn't catch them and just kind of like beefs it in the ending, what you end up with is a narrative that is wholly unsatisfying because the narrative doesn't work without an ending. Whereas With Expedition 33, the ending is irrelevant. You don't need the ending. The narrative tells itself. It's not just like leaving a bunch of balls hanging in the air. It's very character driven, and it's very like the things that happen within the narrative matter regardless of whether you get to the end of the narrative, right? They are not contingent upon reaching an ending. They are intrinsically interesting. The interactions are intrinsically valuable. They don't require this external validation from reaching the end.
It is closed. It is closed.
And there's a lot of ways that narratives can kind of like require the ending to end up being like valid, so to speak. There's a lot of ways that can happen, but it doesn't happen here. So the issue with that is that because of the fact that the narrative itself works, like, I'm not going to spoil what happens in a game for a narrative that I think is really good and really impressive, just because one part of the narrative that isn't really that important, and I would argue is fundamentally, in this case, irrelevant, is not something that I'm willing to do. Yeah, like if you think about like Mass Effect's ending. Mass Effect's ending really hurts the entire project. The entire project is hurt by the ending of Mass Effect because the entire point of Mass Effect is that your decisions matter. And the ending makes it so that no decision that you make matters. Nothing you do in the entire game matters because the ending is the ending. And by that I don't mean like, oh, well, the ending isn't contingent upon your choices. No. What I mean is the ending invalidates your earlier choices by bringing us to a situation where nothing that you did matters. Because the narrative is now in a position where all of these decisions in the background don't matter. Not in the foreground, but in the background, like, okay, rocks fall, everybody dies as an ending means that it doesn't matter that you helped that orphan child, which is not how the ending is exactly. It's weird, but like this is an example, right? If you make an ending of rocks fall, everybody dies, and that's your ending to a thing where the whole point of the thing is making important decisions. It's like, well, what important decisions did I make if everybody dies at the end, no matter what I do, right? So, whereas, like, if you make it so that those decisions that matter in the moment, they don't matter because of what they imply about the future, but they matter in the moment to moment, right? You can make a story. I mean, let's be honest. A French company can make a story where you know at the end of the story that it's going to be terrible and everyone's going to be miserable or dead. And it's very interesting and emotionally resonant and important how you get to this horrible ending. I don't know what it is about French games, but every French game I've ever played is incredibly depressing. They're all so depressing. France, we need to have a talk about your mental health. There's a mental health problem. But so like you can make a story that's about decision making, where the decision making is not undermined by the ending, fairly easily, right? Like by the ending not caring what your decision making is, right? You make that happen by making it so that, again, the important thing is the emotional resonance of these decisions that you're making moment to moment, as opposed to, oh, you know, Mario will remember that, right? Like, the Mario will remember that stuff demands, in my opinion, an unreasonable ask of the creators. It's an unreasonable task to make a large-scale game that cares about your decisions that much. Though, you know, I say that, but it is unreasonable.
Sure.
It is unreasonable.
I might be able
The fact that my favorite author successfully did that is beside the point. It's still an unreasonable ask. It's still unreasonable, whether somebody did it or not. That's an unreasonable thing to expect from a project, and the
Can't learn it.
I forgot where I was with that. But yeah, basic gist is that like, unlike Mass Effect, or Game of Thrones or any other things like that, where the ending is susceptible to dramatically interfering with the fundamental apparatus of the rest of the narrative. I don't think that's true for Expedition 33. Expedition 33 is not about the ending. It is about how you get there in a very meaningful way. You cannot break it by ending it poorly. I mean, you could if you just randomly started spouting racial slurs, I guess. Look, there's always a way to break it, right? I think I played a little bit of Andromeda and got bored quickly. I think I played a little bit of it and it just didn't catch me. I don't think that I would have gotten through Mass Effect if I was playing as Mask Shep.
Leave it.
FemShep did such an amazing job with the voicing that, like,
I can't learn that spell. Leave it.
It made it so that you always want to see the next cutscene. So making a Mass Effect where you don't have FemShep in it, it's like, okay, well, good luck. Good luck.
I can't learn that. I might be able to use it.
It's especially difficult after,
I don't know how.
like, how many times
We don't need it.
have I
We
seen,
don't need it.
like, by the time Andromeda came out, like,
Yes,
how
I
many
do.
times had I already
need
seen a narrative that, like, promised a big game in terms of interactability with the narrative and then completely just, like, didn't give you that, right? Like,
Sure.
so it was one of those things where by the time Andromeda came out, I didn't believe in the project. The concept of making that kind of narrative, unless you're going to be really, really mathy about it. It is funny because I'm saying, like, I don't believe in those kinds of narratives. Fundamentally, the project that I'm trying to make is similar. But I'm just going to go out and say I think I'm better at math than the people who were making the dialogue trees for Mass Effect, because they didn't use math to do it. They just used a bunch of arbitrary flags, and fuck the flags. You need math. You need math. Math's how you get it done. You got to track tons and tons of variables. Track fucking everything. Every time every time a character takes a crap, you need to track that. I'm now realizing that I have no idea what time it is. It's 11:40. Okay. I had a window covering the clock, so I'm just in a void space of time. Okay. But yeah, I think. So yeah, I don't know whether, like, Mass Effect Andromeda.
I don't know how.
I actually, I think there was a specific side quest that we had where it was really the presentation of it felt really weird and made me like uncomfortable and not necessarily trust the writers. I'm not positive on this, but I feel like one of the strongest memories that I have of the whole thing. Yes. I'm not positive on this. But there's a problem that you run up into with a lot of like RPGs that is a disservice to the medium, which is there are a lot of circumstances where you're given the option of either completely ignoring behavior that is unacceptable or murdering someone. Right? Like, those are your options. And sometimes those are your options because the person is violently aggressive, right? But oftentimes those are your options even though the person is not. And I believe that there was some, like, I don't even know, it was like some person, like, shot their commanding officer who was, like, gonna kill the entire group. And, like, your options were to, like, hide the fact that it happened or just shoot them in the head or some shit. Like the options were, like, inappropriate to the situation, right? Where you have this complex situation and your options are either, oh, well, you know, this
Don't touch the merchandise.
This is a common issue with games where you're expected to make decisions, okay? A common issue with games where you're meant to make decisions is they will act like a decision that you make is actually way more important than it really is. And more importantly, they'll act like there's a finality. You have to make the final choice at this moment. And it's a life or death decision that you're making. And it simply is not. There is simply time to gather more information. There is simply time to have a trial. There is simply time. Like, that element in narratives is so toxic to these kinds of, like, decision-heavy narratives where it's like, okay, we'll make this decision. Okay, we need to, like, have you making decisions all the time, right? We need to get a quota on decisions. And it's like, you are making the decision on whether this person will live or die based off of a minute and a half of interviews and vibes. Which is crazy. Like, that's just not... That's not normal. And, like... An example, a similar example, actually. This is something that that happens in the first Baldur's Gate. In the first Baldur's Gate, there's a point, spoiler alert, where you get in a bar fight. I know, major spoilers. Some guy picks a fight with you. He's hard to talk down. You're not expected as the player to talk him down, but you can. It's possible to talk him down. But there's just this drunk guy in a bar that picks a fight with you. That fight, if it happens, doesn't have a non-lethal resolution. This is an unarmed man. In Baldur's Gate, unarmed strikes deal non-lethal damage. They cannot kill you. You cannot be killed by someone hitting you with their bare fist. This is an unarmed man. He literally cannot kill you. There is no way to resolve the encounter without killing him. If you knock him unconscious, when he gets back up again after a few rounds, he'll just start attacking you again. There's no, like... He has friends in the bar. If you knock him out, there's no resolution where they drag him out of the bar. There's no resolution tied to that interaction of, like, you won a bar fight. It's you murdered a person, or you ran away from a person who was trying to kill you, or you successfully navigated the conversation so that he didn't try to kill you in the first place, right? Well, he wasn't trying to kill you. He was picking a fight with you. Again, he cannot kill you. Whether he's trying to kill you or not is honestly a question that's debatable. Like, maybe he is, maybe he isn't. It's not clear because, again, he's drunk in a bar. Like, he's not like a soldier. Anyway, it's just kind of an interesting thing. But yeah, that's something that I think is an element of ooh, you have int on you. Of narratives that runs into a problem in games. It's like, okay, well, we have to solve everything with violence. And we have to solve everything immediately. We can't, like, have the culmination of this quest line to be like, okay, well, there's going to be, you know, a court hearing to determine, like, the specific facts of the case. Which is part of the reason why I get very annoyed with narratives that speak through characters, but it's like the author talking. I hate when authors talk. The authors should shut the hell up. Like, in a narrative, the dialogue that happens in the narrative is serving the author's purpose. The author has an agenda. Everything that they write with purpose, right? This is inextricable from writing. As a writer, you wrote it for a reason, right? These characters are not real. You made them up. So it's important to understand that, yes, these are all fake. The author is writing everything. But there's a big difference between the author recognizing that and the author just, like, going, okay, well, when this character talks, it's actually me talking. And so when this 16-year-old starts going on a diatribe about, like, complex relativity shit, you should trust what they have to say because it's actually me talking, not the character. So you shouldn't think about the fact that this is a literal child who's trying to explain magic via relativity. Maybe he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Maybe this kid is not a source that I should trust for information just because he's a fucking nerd. Look, I'm not specifically calling out any particular narrative that explicitly has a 16-year-old speaking for the author so that you are at the very last second forced to make a decision where you take as a given that the random ramblings of a 16-year-old with no expertise and no understanding of the situation has to be correct, and we have to make our moral choices based off of the presumption of that. We're going to ignore that. It's not like that's a very specific game that I'm referencing.
Don't touch the merchandise.
That I've talked about before. But I love video games and I love writing. It's just that, you know, I feel like there's a better choice.
Come back.
I'm going to be perfectly honest. I would prefer, if you're gonna come up with some bullshit moral dilemma that you want so that you can give like me two endings based off of like, you know, pretending that I understand the thing that the whole point of the narrative is that we just don't understand. Go for it. Go ahead and just send me a message on Discord. Unless it's not private, in which case you can just talk about it here. But the I would rather that the author literally just have a portal appear and an avatar of the author walks out and says, look, so we didn't write a satisfying explanation for why it is that the characters have this particular piece of information. So just assume that the characters understand and believe this thing to be true, which is true about the universe, and go from there and make your decision based off of that. Okay, bye. And they leave. At the very apex of the ball. This is like, as we're reaching the end of the game, the author comes in and says, oops, I fucked up. I would rather that than have a teenager be explaining fucking relativity to me. Okay? This magic shit is not relativity. Don't have a teenager say stupid shit and then expect me to believe it. Like, it's not a good way to write a narrative. It's not a good way to write a narrative. It's not good to have your author do that. But it's, in my opinion, it's way worse to have an extremely untrustworthy source spew some nonsense technobabble at you and then expect you to fucking trust them. Look, if Geordie LaForge spouts some insane technobabble gibberish at me and says, we have to do this for the sake of the ship, because if we don't do this, then this will happen, and you're making a decision based off of what Geordie said, and you're like, okay, I'm in. Geordie LaForge is probably correct. Geordie LaForge is probably right. I trust that Geordie LaForge is correct. I do not trust that... God, what's his name? Oh, God, what's the kid? The kid. What's Will Wheaton's character's name? Wesley. I don't trust Wesley. If you have Wesley say, okay, because of blah, 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 this has to happen, I don't trust him. I guess maybe later in the narrative, because they do some weird shit with Wesley, but like early in the narrative, when he's like the helmsman, that's a kid that probably shouldn't be there, right? If Wesley Crusher in episode 6 says, oh, here's a bunch of insane technobabble for why we need to do this thing, I'm not going to trust him. Get Geordie to tell me that information. Okay. So what am I doing? We're going to Paradise Valley? Question mark? Where's the repair master? I need to find the repair master. This stream has gone off the rails. What is going on here? Repair master. Light and magic. 6. Let's go with 6. Are you in fucking Icewind Dale? You are in Icewind Dale, aren't you? I'm just going to say the wikis are wrong and evil to refer to the location that this guy is in as Hargrave. Okay? Are you kidding me? We have zone names. We have zone names. Okay, let's check 7. Let's see. Master is Thomas More. Where are you? Are you in the place? Tidewater. Does that mean he's in Tatalia? What do you mean? What do you mean Tidewater? This wiki is so bad. Let's see here. Let's see where Quick Jenny is. Quick Jenny's in Garrett Gorge. Okay. We are going to, I think, head to... there. Yeah, I'm happy to talk about any topics that people want to talk about. Clearly, as I have gone on random tangents about the most insane shit today. Now, the reason you can't trust doctors. And you should trust doctors. You should trust them within the capacity of trust but verify, I believe is the term. Trust but verify is good is good generally when you're dealing with people, especially experts. There are definitely some people that you... The thing that you're trusting is that everything that they say is a lie. There are some people that that's the case with. It's not a lot of people, though. What am I saving? Okay, we are saving in the right place. Okay, so we're popping over to Tatalia, because I assume Tidewater is the island... there, because it's the Tidewater Cavern. The wiki is crazy. I do not know
Traveling today?
why someone would write a wiki this way. Like, it's baffling to me that someone would go to the trouble of figuring out what the island in Tatalia is called, and then refer to the island. Is he even there, though? Is he like over here somewhere? Because I feel like I don't think there's any NPCs over there. I'm looking for the repair master guy, which it says is in Tidewater. But the only zone called Tidewater is a dungeon. Hey, Hawkheart. You're just in time for me to complain about the wiki. What is this nonsense? What are they even doing? Is he at the top? Oh my god. There's no way this place is called Tidewater. Up here? There's no shot, right? If the repair person is up there, I'm looking for the master repair trainer, who is allegedly, according to the wiki, small. There's a small. Is that the GM or the master? Is this just explicit misinformation on behalf of the wiki then? So we have Master Shield here. Oh, that's cool. Alright, if it's the small camp in Arathia, I checked the houses in the swamp. I think I checked all of them. Yeah, there's no people here. It's definitely not this. I'm gonna reload to Arathia, and we're gonna check those little camps. Master plate. GM repairs. So if GM repair is there, that means that it's definitely not. Mace, sword, dagger, body. Master repair is down there. Oh my god. It's not even on the island? Why would anyone call this place Tidewater? So I missed the repair person. Do I have this? No. Let's see. I might. I don't really, like, I don't have, like, a lot of investment in the Tron, like, cinematic universe, so to speak. So it would basically be the genre that's the selling point more than... Let's see. Well, so there's an issue, which is this town is probably called Tidewater. And the nerds who run the wiki care more about that factoid than telling you where to get the promotion quest. They want you to know that they know this town is called Tidewater. But the issue is that they don't say stuff like, he makes his you know, he lives in Tidewater in the Tatalia region. They just say Tidewater. This is a problem that the wikis have over and over and over again. It's part of like the style guide for the wikis, just being incoherently bizarre. Like, I don't think... this is my interpretation. I do not think it's the individual creators are doing this because they themselves are, like, narcissistic nerds. I don't think that's what it is. I think that it's actually like that the style guide is crazy. So for people who don't know, like the style guide, when you're writing on a collaborative project, the style guide is basically how is the information supposed to be presented? What is the mechanics of how this is supposed to be so that it is written with the voice of this project as opposed to your own personal voice. You're basically hiding your authorial voice within the thing. So the oh wait, can we get Grandmaster right now? No, we can't get Grandmaster ever. This is repaired. Okay. Whew. So anyway, but it leads to like a lot of confusion with a lot of wikis are very weirdly written. Because of like specific style, like they have like weird rules about style that I think are inappropriate. If I had to guess, I would say that the style of this is written, it's meant to sound naturalistic, as if this character was a real person living in a real place in the world, and you have to use that as the fictional backdrop for how you're making this information show up in the how you present the information, right? As opposed to like, this is a video game character that teaches you master repair. Go here. And if that isn't the reason, if it's not because of some weird style guide thing like that is like weird and I don't think appropriate, but is like, you know, fine, whatever. That's just an expected thing that you end up with in these kinds of projects. If it's not that, then I don't know what the hell to tell you. Okay, let's go. Should I just get GM in these? GM Earth would be fun to have as we're approaching. Yeah. It's like the town of Tidewater, which is not referenced anywhere in this game. It's only referenced if you play Heroes of Might and Magic 27. If you play one of the new gacha games that they've got. I was watching I was watching a video recently that was talking about Expedition 33, and it was very funny because the person who made the video was referencing the Might and Magic series, and he's like, oh, this, Might and Magic, which is this, like, gotcha mobile game series for, Android or whatever. And I'm like, no! It was so painful to hear. How do I still not have master meditation with you? They have look. These companies will always find ways to make every series into a gacha game. Yeah, it's like a tower defense gacha or something, right? Is that am I into? I saw like a couple of seconds of footage of it during this video while I was screaming and crying to myself about how far the series has fallen. It's made by like Ubisoft Shanghai or something like that. There is a Might and Magic mobile game. Because Ubisoft owns the rights, and they will do great evil until they are stopped. The blight upon this land. What do I want to do with you? We can't get to GM with this, so I'm probably not going to bother. We're going to do... Okay, everybody. It's everybody's responsibility. I'm taking this responsibility off myself. Okay, the next time Malekith comes in here, I need to ask Malekith about Leech, okay? I need to figure out how this legendary is supposed to work and whether it's working as intended, because I need to know this, because it actually meaningfully affects the build later. Let's see. Because AFK Arena I enjoyed. But AFK Arena I only enjoyed because they had... because of the way that they actually handled it, Paging Malekith. Look, I have a suspicion that morale failed at Ubisoft a long time ago. That feels like it's been a long-standing wind incinerate. I'm gonna dominate. Do I have an angle to get into the green now? I might have to kill the first pack without getting hit, without getting away. Like I can't get away from the pack. Okay. Okay. Let's go. We got there. Pushing random buttons. Okay. Let's save over caster save. That's kind of... I wasn't expecting to win that fight. I was like, oh, I'm going to be in trouble here because I have to start this up. Okay, how much do we want to bet that the tracking for the projectiles got turned off accidentally again? Do we... Oh. keep dropping meteors.
I don't know.
I think we're safe here.
Who's next?
Okay. So, look at us with our endgame shenanigans. Imagine how much harder this would be if we were trying to do this on melees. Okay. So, I'm just gonna stand here and drop rocks. Oh, shit. These are dying fast, actually.
Never seen one before. Beats me.
Ooh, okay. Wait. That shit ain't tracking. Wait. Wait. I'm gonna save this. That tracked. That didn't. That's not tracking. We might have to reload. The enemy's shots are not tracking. So I thought it was way too easy. So if we don't do Paradise Valley today and we wait until this is patched, what would we do instead? Alternatively, we could just try to finish it all before Malekith shows up. I think I'm going to reload back. I think that I want to suffer when I'm doing this, so let's figure out where we're going to go. Because, yeah, those projectiles were definitely not tracking. Let's see. So what do we want to do about today, then? We can't town portal anywhere. The whole reason that I came to Blackshire in the first place was to get access to Grandmaster Dark. And so that's unfortunate. What we will do before we do anything else is we're actually going to pop over to the Dark Magic Guild and hopefully pick up Dragon Breath. Because I forgot to do that. But Dragon Breath will be very helpful.
Dark, the magic of evil.
Of evil. Dark Grasp. Don't need Dark Grasp. I didn't even realize that Dark Grasp was a spell. Shrinking Ray, Shrapnel. Okay, we're all gold. We have now gotten...
I can't learn that.
I can't learn it, though. It's a master level spell. That's unfortunate. I can't learn it. I have to go... We have 6 levels to get there. Let's see. Gotcha. I completely forgot about the sacrifice spell. Alright, where are we going? We have 40 minutes left. You know what's really tempting? I'm not going to do it because I don't have Dragon Breath, but it's really tempting to go on the map. It would be real tempted to go on that map. see here. I need to check you. I need to pick up all these spells. Is Charm still in the game? Did they remove Charm and replace it with something else? They didn't, right? Charm's still there? Okay. Look, I disagree with your framing. Charm should not still be in the game. I disagree on a fundamental level. Actually, that's not entirely true. I think that it should be in the game, but the game should have more cool support for it, because charm effects are very cool and interesting, and they should be supported. I guess I should just go turn in, huh? I just realized that I haven't really done that yet. But it's not going to matter, really, so maybe I don't bother. I'll turn in at the end. Because we have Kilburn's shield and stuff like that. Did we find... Yes, we got him brought back. So I think we've done all the quests that are actually here. Do we... I don't... Do I go to the Cove? I could go to Silver Cove. If I go to Silver Cove, then I can get... I can get Mastery and Grand Mastery in all the Self Magics that I don't really have access to anyway. I can at least get Mastery. And Master Light Magic is one zone away from there, but unfortunately it's a zone that has a lot of... There's like a lot of nasty stuff in between me and there. And more importantly, there's just a lot of content in between me and there. So... I'm not... we have like 40 minutes left in stream. I don't want to go all the way to there and then have to finish that whole area. So what would be a fast zone to finish is the real question, I think. We could do Mire of the Damned. That's really, really quick and easy to do. Super easy, barely an inconvenience. We finished Mist. We finished New Sorpigal. We finished Freehaven. We could do Whitecap. Whitecap has 2 small dungeons. Can I fly in Whitecap? Actually, Whitecap would let me get the priest promotion done immediately. I can instantaneously get the priest promotion done if I do that, which would allow me to get up to... I guess it would allow me to get Grandmaster and Enlightenment. And that's, like, it. Gets me Grandmastery and Ascension. Gives me GM Merchant. Doesn't really give me a ton, I guess, to do that. We would, however, be able to do the first promotion, which doesn't matter. We only care about the second promotion for Archer. But the other promotions only require that we go to Silver Cove. Once we go to Silver Cove, we can instantaneously do the second promotion, which would give us access to Grandmaster Mind Magic, which would be nice. Also gives us Grandmaster in Vampire, which gives us access to Levitation. And, not Levitation, to the other thing that makes us immune to physical attacks. Paradise Valley, Alamos, Scope, Bootleg Bay, Mist. I'm not sure where I want to go next. What I really want to do is I really want to do Paradise Valley. I really want to get that done. But no, maybe I should do a vote in chat. What do we think? Do we go to Paradise Valley even though the tracking isn't working? Which almost feels intentional because I feel like the tracking in Paradise Valley was never happening. Like it was inconsistent in 6 even when I was doing the 6 run, I think. Has Malekith talked about that at any point? Like is there like a specific design reason why the enemies in Paradise Valley seem to not have homing projectiles? Is that a bug or is that intentional? 1 second. Well, no, I mean, the tracking isn't working the way that it was here in Blackshire, right? Like, like, y'all saw how difficult it was to actually dodge with flying around here in this place. The thing is that some of the projectiles track and some of them don't. Which was a problem that I ran into in MM6 as well, specifically with Paradise Valley. So yeah, it's like we either go to Paradise Valley anyway, get ourselves Grandmaster Dark Magic, and don't worry about it, or we go to Whitecap, which kind of gives us access to some promotions that we want, but it's not a super big deal. Or we go to Silver Cove, which gives us a decent number of things, but is very long. Like, we'd spend a lot of time there. So we wouldn't be able to just pop right back to Paradise Valley. And Silver Cove's hard. I don't want to do Silver Cove until I've gotten Paradise Valley done. So it's realistically it's between Whitecap and Paradise Valley, and I think I'm probably going to do Whitecap first, just so that I can.
It is closed.
So sad. Sleep well, Celestial. My vote was Silver Cove. Why do you want Silver Cove? Do you want to make my life miserable? Is that why you want Silver Cove? Answer wisely and truthfully. I wish I could teleport to these places. You think I'm going to do eel-infested waters before I do Paradise Valley? I don't get anything out of Grandmaster Light. I get nothing out of it. So the answer is yes. It's so that I can suffer. Is that it? Is that it? Admit it. Is it so I suffer? If it's so I suffer, I'll do it. I'll do it. I actually won't do it. I'm too lazy. I lied. I lied, actually. Excalibur. Oh, wait, I can't fly here? I can't fly. Everything here is flying. Oh, mistakes might have been made, folks. This area is only flyers. Well, that's unfortunate. Let's see. So if we did Silver Cove, we would have to clear out the Druid Monolith. We'd have to clear out the another Thinger place. We'd have to clear out. So we have like 3 dungeons that we would have to clear out in Silver Cove. I want to check this actually. We're going back to where we just were. I want to check. I want to check if these archers are also homing or not. Yes, the silver helms. That's the word I was looking. Those are those tracking? I don't think those are tracking. I don't think these are tracking at all, are they?
This always happens.
Maybe they're tracking a tiny bit. I was trying to see if I could, like, literally sidestep them by moving backward, which I think I usually can. It depends on how close they are, though. These are not in like the optimal position for me to test that. I'm going to move somewhere that I can be far away from them without blocking their line of sight. No, I don't think I can usually do that with anywhere, right? Is that the spread of... I don't feel like these are tracking, are they? Like, I can't dodge projectiles from that far away this easily with homing.
I knew it.
Right? Like, those are clearly not homing in on me. Aren't you supposed to talk? Okay. Well, if the ranged enemies are broken anywhere that I go, that changes things. I think we might just go to Paradise Valley then. Because either the homing is working in a consistent way, and I'm misjudging how difficult the homing is supposed to be in exterior areas. Let's check your homing. Okay, that homed in on me. That would have been a dodge if it didn't home. Well, I know that it's not the same as it was in the other one, but the thing that has got me confused about it is that I feel like the enemies here were way harder to deal with. Like, it was much harder to deal with their projectiles. They were tracking much more strongly. Because like if there's any tracking at all on these other projectiles, I'm not seeing it. Whereas, like, I feel like usually you can see the projectiles curving on the map, right? Like, you can see the thing trailing down on you. Maybe that was an outlier, and the tracking on some of the attacks is actually stronger than it's supposed to be. I could see that being the case. But yeah, most likely I'm just crazy. Because I am almost positive that this what I'm doing right here would get me killed instantaneously in the other place. in the southern end of Blackshire. Like I don't think I could have survived doing that. I can't believe we just survived a hit. It's kind of wild. Can we get in the ground? Is that a thing that can happen? Okay, we can get in the green. Okay, we're gonna save this. And we're gonna just save under caster save, it's fine. And do we just spam Meteor Swarms because they're fun? I think we do. We're gonna just spam Meteor Swarm because Meteor Swarm's fun. Thorns, Hydra, and Venomous. Okay, we've now got multiple packs coming from multiple directions. This is absolutely a great way to die. Oh. I went up a bit. I tried to be cheeky. I thought I could lift up a bit. I should probably do this in a slightly more sensible way. Okay, Noble Titan's down. Okay, that one's toast. What am I doing, casting? We're just gonna use Meteor Swarm because Meteor Swarm is fun to use. It's not often that I'm gonna get to use Meteor Swarm a bunch, so I just want to use it. It might be, but I think that I'm seeing the same behavior that I saw before, which is some of the Mind Blasts are tracking, but not all of them. Like I think I'm seeing different behavior within the same spell. I ran myself in the wall. Actually, there's an easy way to test this. Okay, these are definitely tracking. They're just not tracking as much as I expected to. I believe that the degree of tracking that is standard for Maw is that moving up and down is not sufficient to dodge. I believe that is the standard that I've come to expect. Is that in this game, going up and down is not sufficient on its own to dodge attacks. But it's possible that it's only not sufficient to dodge attacks consistently. So, you know, I should probably do a better job of dodging, considering that I'm, you know. Such a beautiful spell. Is there a way I can pull all you fuckers to the same spot and just launch to this? Probably, actually. If I could get if I could get behind the right hill I can probably just burn things down from behind the hill. It's a pretty decent amount of damage. Oh! I'm such a dope. I was thinking that there was a venomous enemy here. It's just a venomous Hydra. I was like, how is there a venomous boss that I have not seen? What is happening? I keep seeing it show up on the combat block. And I don't see it. Where is it? Okay. We're all good. Okay, so we're gonna be able to do this. Things are probably not broken. Yeah, see that clearly curved at me. That was definitely taking on a curve. I just feel like you can see when they're curving and when they're not. Like, that didn't curve at all. Like, you can see that it's just a straight shot, right? Like, based off of the trajectory. I do think that there's, like, a variance there where sometimes they track and sometimes they don't track at all. And I think it's specific to this zone. I think I'm not crazy. I think there's a weird bug in this zone. Maybe there's something weird about the way that enemies fire in this zone. Because I know that, like, there are oddities with, what is it, is it the Lincoln? No, it's the Control Center, I think. In the Control Center, any enemies that are in there will have a multi-attack. It's not the enemies that are there, it's any enemy in that zone. So it's like, you only see those enemies there, pretty much, but when they're in the Control Center, they do a specific multi-attack thing. But apparently that happens in a randomizer regardless of what enemy is in there. And it's because it's tied not to the creature, it's tied to the map. And I'm wondering if there's maybe something about Paradise Valley that changes that code. I don't think I'm crazy. I don't believe it for a second. I mean, I did believe it for a second, but I'm increasingly believing it less. Need to get, like, do some, like, pixel measurements. Get the game theorists on this. There's a bunch of them now, I hear. Start measuring pixel distances to justify my mad claims. There we go. There we go. Alright, so we're making progress. And my hope is that I can basically clear a nice, convenient route that gives me access to just a hill to stand behind and just spam Meteor Swarm, because I think that would be a fun way to handle these. It's so interesting, like, doing Paradise Valley the way that, like, you're honestly supposed to be doing it, you know? Okay. I think I'm just gonna loot things as I go here, maybe. Got a helm. Is it legendary? Only time will tell. We didn't get any legendaries from the werewolf dungeon, I don't think. Which is unfortunate. All set, all set.
Nice shot.
It's a colossal. And they're not super aggressive. They don't really cast that much. I think the Hydras have melee behaviors, so... There's a chance that they shoot a fireball at me or whatever, but... At any given moment, they're... need to make the decision between approaching to get closer or... Another boss? Holy shit. You never see, you know, bosses of the bottom tiers until you come here, and then you get bosses for days. It's kind of weird that they're a different color instead of being bigger. Hydras are kind of weird, I guess. Yeah, that was definitely tracking. That didn't look like it was tracking. You know what part of it is? I feel like if they were tracking normally, I feel like they'd at least be leveling out to the appropriate elevation, and they're not doing that. They have a lot of time to track toward my elevation, so I'd expect them to be more of a... Oh, we got a map! We just got ourselves another map. How about that? We're at 8% clearance, which is definitely indicative of how much time we're going to be spending here. 100%. Definitely. We're going to have a bunch of dragons to deal with soon. But yeah, because we don't have to actually approach these, we can basically just pull them like one or two at a time. Shit! Didn't notice the projectile start. Oh, we're getting attacked from behind. We need to get out of here. Save the game. I am curious how many total targets there are. Okay, gotta pin him in place with the other shots so that the meteor swarm can just tag them all. Whoa! That definitely tracked. Easy peasy. Whoa, okay, let's just get ourselves killed for no reason. That's a good way to do it. Ba-ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba. Okay. No! No! Okay, we are done. Cleared those out. We have some more over here to loot. Let's just, I guess, get access to these things. Pull those up. I need a conspiracy board for my
We've done it.
my homing projectiles. Just like a bunch of screenshots. See? This clearly wasn't tracking, but this was clearly tracking. I'm not crazy, the world is crazy. Okay, save it up. Oops. Well, that was really unfortunate. I like just stopped moving at exactly the wrong moment. Oh right, yeah, I can't just like drop a meteor swarm and walk away. That's not how it works. Oh, okay, you know, it's very unfortunate when you play really badly and you just drive yourself straight into a projectile. Oh boy, oh boy. Okay. We're at 15% clearance. We haven't... Whoa, we got a relic. Oh. Whoops. Hey, we got... Wait, that wasn't the relic. Wait, what? What? The item changed. Okay. That was the item that gave us a relic, right? So we lost our relic instantaneously. I don't know how that happened. Did I multi-loot the first time? I didn't know. I didn't notice the. I didn't notice it multi-looting. That's so funny though. Hey, relic. Nope. No relic actually. I am actually curious how the drop is calculated when the multi-loots happen. Because there's a tendency when a multi-loot happens to get multiple of the same item. Like there's a very strong tendency for that. Like I've had a multi-loot where I looted 3 boots in a row or something like that. Like you loot 3 of the same item type. And I'm curious about that because it's not a guarantee, but it's very, very common. And I'm curious, like, why that is the case. Because presumably what's happening is that when you loot the corpse is, like, not... Because it looks like the corpse is a despawning. But, you know, I don't know why I just forgot that this has the ability to shoot. It was just so consistently sitting there for so long that it was like, okay, this is my life now. So, like, multi-loot on vanilla, I understand because it's... the loot is generated when you loot it, right? So when you loot the body, that is when it checks what loot is there in the first place. Whereas my understanding is that all of that is loaded in, like what is being dropped is loaded in preemptively in Maw. So basically, as soon as the creature is created, the loot that's on it is created. But I wonder if it's not that simple. Maybe there's just like a specific like variable that is normally randomed at that point, but is not randomed. In Maw, like in Maw, that is set earlier. Because the thing, like, it would make sense if a multi-loot gave me the same thing every time, and if I was to assume that it had the same probability of giving me any loot that it can drop on multi-loot, rather than it having that tendency for it to be a sticky, where it's like, okay, it's giving me 3 suits of plate armor in a row off the same enemy, that would make me think that it's just giving me... It's basically like it clearing the body and functionally like generating new one in terms of like the loot dynamics, but it's kind of this in-between space where sometimes it multi-loots the same type of object, but not the exact same object, just the same type of object. So there's a tendency for that, but it's not universal. If I had to guess, I would say that probably the body, like the creature ID, is probably giving me like a unique object there, where the creature ID is one variable that it's using, and then the creature ID is being compared to a thing. And if the same creature ID is being used twice in a row, it's pointing at that creature ID is then just pointing at a different place because it's just moving along a list of some sort. I'm wondering if that's what it is, and that the creature ID is like related to like basically you have like one variable that's very similar, which means that you're usually going to get something that's in a category that's very similar. Like some of the variables are going to be in the same basic neighborhood. Okay. Okay. So we've cleared out 23%, and it's just about 1 o'clock. So we can figure out what we're doing from there. Okay. All set. So can I just shoot you all from here? Yeah, I don't have line of sight on you from here. This is very cute. I'm enjoying this strategy. It's just fun. It's just a fun, silly strat. I'm happy that a Meteor Swarm is a spell. It's just very fun to use. Like, it's a very powerful spell. It's extremely awkward to use, but it's real satisfying as well. So, we've cleared out about a quarter of this place. I think, yeah, we cleared out about a quarter of this place. We have another huge bunch of more powerful critters down here. The dragons will be probably not a big threat, honestly, to us on this playthrough. Fairly easy to get them by themselves, and then once they're by themselves, we just spam single target attacks into them. Should be able to do that pretty easily. We're going to be able to get Grandmaster Dark Magic here, which is going to be a huge upgrade for us, I think. We'll see like how big of a difference it makes. I'm imagining that having access to Dragon Breath, having access to Grandmaster Shrapmetal, because Grandmaster Shrapmetal shoots so many projectiles. I feel like that is going to give at least some value over just hitting Toxic Cloud all the time. Yeah, so that's going to be it for today. So thank you for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure to just talk absolute nonsense for 4 hours. And I hope to see you again tomorrow when, hey, maybe we'll be more on topic. Later.